Hey, how's it going? This is Darius from Self-Archeology.com. Today's topic is emotions and how sometimes when we feel emotionally bad, it doesn't necessarily mean that something bad is going on in our current life, and vice versa. If we feel good, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is okay. So let's start. A lot of people don't have a very good understanding of emotions, be it their own emotions or other people's emotions. If you ask a person, how do you feel? A lot of people say, I feel not good, I feel bad, or I feel really good, I feel good. So bad and good. It's good that at least you can separate between pleasant and unpleasant. It's not good, it's not bad, it's pleasant and unpleasant. That's what people usually mean. But what I would suggest is to learn how to identify your emotions more accurately. So when you feel bad, what is it? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it loneliness? Is it discontent? Is it disappointment? Is it disgust? There could be a lot of emotions. If you feel good, what is it? Is it joy? Is it elation? Is it motivation? Is it energy? How do you pinpoint what you actually feel? And why is that important? Why do we even need to do that? Well, because emotions carry information, and it is useful for us to understand that information accurately. And I will give a few examples how people misinterpret that information, because the emotion itself is not good or bad, it's not a problem. You feel lonely, it's not the emotion that's problematic, it's your situation, and people misinterpreting their emotional information, that's where the problem lies. And so if you understand your emotions better, if you can pinpoint what you actually feel, and then understand what it means, what kind of information does this emotion carry, you can understand yourself better and you can resolve whatever is going on much, much more efficiently. So sometimes people say they feel bad, and they think that since the emotion is unpleasant, it must mean that something bad is happening. So a very common example would be a person starts working on themselves. So they start journaling, they go to therapy, they examine their life, they gain certain insight, they understand their life a little better, they understand the world better, they see how horrible and broken the world is and how perhaps their childhood was not very good. And this is quite painful sometimes. For example, you figure out that maybe your father or your mother or other significant figures in your life didn't care about you. Maybe they didn't love you very much. That's a very painful realization. Whoever you are, wherever in life you are, to realize that my mother, my father didn't love me when I was a child. I was dependent on them, and they needed to protect me and take care of me and provide all these things for me, and they failed. Either they were unable or they just didn't care, but they didn't provide that. And that's very painful. How do I feel about that? This is really, really painful. I feel bad. And the person thinks, well, I wanted to do all this work because I wanted to feel better. And I feel worse now. Before I was kind of numb, but now I feel all this pain. And this is not good. It feels bad. So it must mean that something bad is happening, but not necessarily. And oftentimes it's something good that's happening. You are becoming stronger, therefore you don't need to repress all these things. You can be more open-minded and more aware of how your life has been and how the world is, and you can accept more painful realizations about it. You are more in touch with reality. And since sometimes reality is painful, there's a lot of bad and pleasant things in reality. And our emotions tell us that sometimes, and to accept that sometimes it's very painful. But it doesn't necessarily mean that something really bad is happening to you right now. So you might feel very afraid, you might feel abandoned or neglected when you start working on yourself and you feel that, oh my God, I'm all alone in the world and my parents didn't love me and this is horrible. This is from the past. This is how you felt when you were a child. And now, if you explore that and if you accept that now I am an adult and I can endure all these painful feelings, I don't need my parents anymore to survive. It's still painful to accept that your parents didn't love you or didn't take care of you as much as they could or should have. But this won't kill you. And it takes a long amount of time to realize all of that, to process all of that. And for a while, it could be very painful. And so you might feel worse, and that's why a lot of psychologists and mental health workers and other people talk about it and tell you that oftentimes it might feel worse before it gets better, because that's how it works sometimes. Like you go to the gym, maybe, or you exercise by yourself. Sometimes it's painful, it's unpleasant, but to get healthier, you might need to endure some pain. And this is normal, this is how it works sometimes. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that since you feel pain, it means that you are getting better. Not necessarily. And that's the second part of it. Like, sometimes you feel really good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your life is good. So a lot of people carry a lot of pain. And to manage this pain, they medicate themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean with drugs or medication, but just with anything, with whatever. They will do whatever to momentarily stop this inner pain just for a second, because it's so unbearable sometimes. People will do whatever it takes to just get rid of it, at least for a little bit. They will take drugs, drink alcohol, smoke, overeat, have a lot of sex, get into unhealthy relationships, watch TV, consume a lot of stuff, listen to a lot of horrible stuff, distract themselves, do whatever, to just not be with themselves, to not just deal with that pain. And when you do that, you might feel good. Well, it's nice. To give an extreme example, a person does heroin. They feel all these endorphins, they feel good, they smile, they feel, oh, all this pain is gone. I feel like my mother loves me. I feel like I'm in my mother's arms and everything is okay now. Just for the second. I feel calm. And this is very soothing. And if you have a myopic, short-sighted view, you might think, oh, okay, I feel good. So this must be good. Well, no, not really. Like, if you understand how these things work, and you look at such a person from an outside perspective, you see, oh, okay, they're really miserable, they're in pain, they're suffering, and that's how they deal with their pain. You don't think that they're well, that they're happy, if they're doing drugs. So sometimes it can be really confusing, because you might feel good and you might interpret that information as if everything's good. You, I don't know, go to church and people tell you Jesus loves you and you don't feel as lonely. You might feel good, you might feel better. People might tell you you're not a horrible person. Well, actually you are in some ways, and you might feel good. Or you read about positive thinking and you just block everything that's painful out of your consciousness and you feel good. Everything's good. Life is great. The world is flowers and rainbows. Everything's fine. I'm good. Meanwhile, maybe your spouse is beating you every other day and you just take some drugs, you drink a little, you watch some TV and you block all this pain, all this painful reality. And you might feel it's good. It must be good. So sometimes it's quite confusing. So that's why it's important to understand emotions. How do you feel? Good or bad? That's a good start to understand if it's, at least if it's pleasant or unpleasant. Okay, it's unpleasant. What is it? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it loneliness? Is it something else? If it's good, what is it? Is it joy? Is it happiness? Is it energy? Is it motivation? Is it connection? Find a list of emotions and have it somewhere. And then when you feel something, try to pinpoint what it actually is. And again, sometimes it's very confusing and complicated. You might feel something that is overlapping with something else, or it's enmeshed with something, and it's quite difficult to understand what it is. But it's a good start. And when you do that, when you understand what you feel, you can interpret that better. So learn more about emotions, learn more about your history. How do these things connect? Why do I feel lonely today? Why do I feel abandoned today when I'm not? When I'm an adult, I'm okay. What does it all mean? And try to work on that instead of medicating yourself or trying to get away from that, trying to just feel good, whatever it takes. It's not going to work. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's not going to work. I've had clients who are twice my age. They're like 55, 60 years old sometimes. And I see they tried everything in life. They don't feel better. Before they started to work on themselves, they didn't get better. They got everything: fame, money, looks, a lot of sex, a lot of free time, anything. They had everything. Whatever you can think of, some people had it. And that's why I sometimes say it's midlife crisis. I think midlife crisis in many ways is when you tried everything to become genuinely happy and nothing worked, and now you are left with nothing. You don't know what to do because you probably don't want to actually work on yourself, or you don't know, you never encountered that, you never considered that as an option, and you tried everything, every popular method, and it didn't work, and now you feel stuck and your life is ending. Well, not soon, but at least you're mid there, and therefore it's kind of stressful. You feel really bad about yourself. And some people realize that very early. I have friends who are like 27, 28, and they were very fortunate to have, for example, money and time for themselves, and they, again, tried a lot of things, and it didn't work before they started working on themselves more. So the earlier you realize that all these superficial things won't solve your deep emotional and psychological problems, and that you need to understand your emotions, your true emotions, your history better, and connect that with what is going on right now and understand it and resolve it, that's how you get rid of this pain. You won't get better. So I hope that was helpful, and share this video if you found it useful. You can click like if you want to. Find us on Facebook if you haven't already, and have a great weekend. Have a good next week, and see you in the future. Bye.